because we've all spent our life on Zoom, Christmas dinners and what have you since since the beginning of the year. So I hope you can see me all right and hear me okay as well. Right, so we're going to start up in a standing position, and you're going to have your feet so they are hip distance apart, just letting your hips track down to the floor, and try and have your feet so they are parallel. So what I mean by parallel is just not that 10 to 2 position or pigeon-toed, so they're going to be facing forwards. And then just root your feet down onto the floor. So we're looking at your heels sort of being nice and active and the balls of your feet nice and active. And then we're going to have an imaginary pole that comes through the crown of our head, okay, and takes us all the way down to the floor. Now we're going to take our arms out to a T shape and just rock your way over to your right hand side. So I'm going to keep myself like a rigid pole. I'm going to take myself back to the centre and rock yourself over to the left. So you'll notice that I'm not starting to lean, and also I'm not using my neck to fool me that I'm going over further than I would. So we're transferring the weight to enable one foot to theoretically lift off the floor. Yeah. Okay, so keep nice and stable through the body, that's it. And if you see me looking up, I'm not looking up into space, I am actually looking at my TV. Yeah. So keep that weight rocking from side to side. Now we're going to see if we can lift the leg and just lift up out to the side. And then place the foot. Try not to bend through the body. We're really pushing down through the heel. And can you try and squeeze the standing leg? Now if you don't want to do that lift, just come up onto the toes here. We're going to do a couple more of those each side. Don't worry if you're not quite in time with me. So all we're doing is sort of waking up through the sides of the glutes. And my regulars will know that we talk about that a lot. The glutes, so our powerhouse is round this bit, okay? And really working on the muscles that support our pelvis. Okay, then we're going to come back to the centre. I'm going to turn to the side. And nice and straight through the body. We're going to rock our way onto the balls of our feet. So you're trying not to hinge at the middle. Yeah, so you're rocking the way onto the balls of your feet and then onto your heels. So you're like a rigid pole here, just rocking forwards and backwards and feeling how that weight transfers from the front to the back. Now, pretty much all of you, can you try and adjust your feet to a parallel hip distance apart position again, please? Because where we were doing those ones, we've gone a little bit wider. So we're looking for the bony bits here and then traveling all the way down. Yeah. Now, see if you can avoid coming up onto the balls of the feet. When we come forwards, keep the heels down and see how far you can lean. Now feel your quads engaged, and I really want you to feel your core engage as you lean forwards. And also try not to squeeze your toes onto your mat, okay? So you're going to spread your toes. Thinking about the foundation of our body is really, really, really important. And then when you come back, it's onto the heels, keep the balls of the feet down, so that's the base of the big toe. And try not to sort of lean backwards. Okay, so we've just got a couple more. Excellent. Okay, now this time, find that center point. So we're starting with the feet. Yeah, so you want to make sure that your heels and the balls of your feet are evenly placed on the mat. Now we're going to look at the pelvic position, and we talk about a neutral pelvis a lot. So we try and make sure that our pelvis is neutral all the time, because if your pelvis is neutral, then the rest of you is neutral, theoretically. Okay, so this is our center point. So we're going to work on, if you stay looking at the camera, I'm going to turn to the side. So we're going to work on a standing pelvic tuck. So try and imagine that you are, you've got dials on the side of your hips, and you're just going to tuck your pelvis forwards and then tuck it back. So one way will come really natural to you, the other way will feel quite difficult. So we're trying to keep the upper body still. So I'm just moving from my hips. Okay, so I'm sort of pushing my pubic bone backwards to the floor, and then I'm pushing it forwards up to the ceiling, as forward as mine will go. Yeah, so one way will be really easy for you, and the other way will feel really unnatural. And then we're going to find that center position. So halfway sort of between both those positions. And we're not going to go into that too much today, but we're just going to try and find that center point. Then reach the arms up over our head. Yeah, and try and keep our rib cage so that it doesn't start to stick forwards. And then we're going to rock that weight forwards. Keep that strong line and exhale as you come up onto the balls of the feet this time. Okay, then you're going to inhale, let the heels come down and just push into the weight on the heels, exactly like we did before. So inhale, lean forwards and come up. Keep those toes nice and soft. Try not to let the feet roll out. Come down and back. That's it. Now, if you can feel your ankles doing this, that's all good. If you can feel your hips sort of having to adjust a bit, that is all good. But the more stable we can make it, the better. Now this time, bring your hands down. We're going straight up this time, so we're not going to actually lean forwards. So we're going to exhale, come up rather than forwards. Inhale, come down, let the heels come down. So from the side, I'm going up rather than forwards. So you're really going to need to use your breath and work on that elevation up. Okay, so try your best not to lean forwards, and also we don't want the ankles to be sort of rolling out like this, which is a really common thing to do. So really use the base of the big toe as you lift. Just going to go for a couple more of those. Just want to watch and see how we're getting on. So it's working to breath speed. So it's an exhale to perform the effort and an inhale to reset, basically. Okay, so last one. Fab stuff. Right, so I come to the end of your mat, but just make sure you can still see the camera. If you're just using the carpet, that's fine too. And we're going to start to roll the spine down. So nod through your chin. Remember, any neck injuries, the people that have said necks, we're going to really try and work through the upper back rather than pushing the chin forwards. Well, that goes for everyone actually. And then we're going to roll, just take the fingers sort of down to the knees or down to the shins. And then as you exhale, you're going to roll and stack everything back up, making sure that you squeeze your bottom cheeks and you pull your tummy in. So it's not about depth, it's not about touching our toes. It's about making our spine into a nice rounded position so we can stretch it. We can let our head hang, we can let our shoulders hang. We can get a little bit warm into the backs of our legs. And thinking about that C shape. So if you can imagine that there's a string onto your belly button, that as you curl down, you're just like a puppet and you're hanging on that string. Yeah, so you're upside down with that C shape through and you're hanging from that belly button. And then when you come up, you're being pulled from your belly button, as though it's like one of those buttons that's on a sofa, you know, that pulls through to the other side. That's what we're trying to think about. Okay, fab job. Let me just see what we're going to do next. So next, we're going to roll down. We're going to have a bend in our knees. So you're going to find a comfortable roll, doesn't matter how deep you are. And then from there, we're going to pull our shoulders up to the ceiling. So pull your shoulders back. I've got quite a heavy bend in my knees. My tummy's pulled up nice and tight. And I'm actually quite rounded through my back. Then I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades together as I pull. Imagine my shoulders are being pulled up behind me. Okay, and then I'm going to keep my tummy active as I tuck my pelvis and I'm going to roll back up. So I'm actively pulling my shoulders. So when I'm in a roll down, it actually looks like this. So I'm trying to do the C shape, and then I'm, instead of pushing all into the upper part of my back, I'm squeezing here, and I'm using my core to really pull me up. Okay, so I'm gonna roll down, heavy bend of the knees, pull my tummy in and up, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and then as I exhale, I'm gonna use my core to pull me up. And that's it. Make sure you're not using your back muscles. You're really squeezing in through that tummy as you roll up with those shoulders nice and active. Okay, we're going to go for number 2. So let's have a look and see how we have got on with that. That's it. So let those arms hang there, Anne. Let them hang. That's it. Squeeze the shoulders now. So arms hang, shoulders squeeze. That's it. Okay, Sarah Buck, just watch your... I did say I wasn't going to name and shame, didn't I? Okay, so everyone is just going to watch their straight back as they roll up. Really make sure that you're squeezing your glutes. Sorry, I forgot. I do lie a lot. Okay, great. Relax your shoulders. When you've done that second one, you're going to start to roll the shoulders up and back and squeeze the shoulder blades. So think about making it a nice big movement. Squeeze and push your chest forward. So squeeze, really wake up through the upper back muscles. Now we're going to try and do the same thing with a bent knee. So you're going to squeeze, make sure we don't have a duck bum, so we're not pushing our bottom back like this. And also we're not going to be rounded. So we want a nice straight back position. Then we're going to squeeze those shoulder blades as though we're trying to sort of push our sternum forwards. But there's no movement into my abdominals here. I'm really using my tummy muscles and my glutes to keep me in this squat position. Okay, last one. Take the arms out in front of you. Now the bottom's going to come backwards, and the best way I can describe this is to imagine that you're going to sit on a public toilet and you're not actually going to sit on it. Okay, so you all know what that sort of feels like. Yeah, so we're going to push back because the toilet's obviously behind us. Yeah, and we're going to keep the upper body up. So watch the arches in the back, push the weight into the heels, and then you're going to exhale as you come back up. So the weight comes backwards. You're really going to, when we looked at the rocking forwards and backwards, I had all my weight into my heels. That's what you're going to do now. So that weight comes backwards. Yeah, you sink the weight into your heels, and effectively, I want you to be able to wiggle your toes, yeah, when you're into that squat. So you should be able to bring your toes light. And then a couple more. I'm just going to adjust my screen. That's it, well done. Now you shouldn't have any knee pain with this. So just watch knees rolling in as well. That's a classic one for this one. Yeah, so last one. And then we're going to take our weight all the way down onto our mat. We're going to find, so sometimes I call this 4-point kneeling, sometimes I call it tabletop, sometimes I call it quadruped. Yeah, this position. Okay, so it's just into a 4-point kneel. So we're going to look at the setup. So heels of my hands are underneath my shoulders. I'm pulling my shoulders away from my ears, and we're going to make sure my spine is really nice and neutral. So what I mean by that is I'm not going to let this sag happen in the middle, and I'm not going to be rounding and letting my head hang. So finding that neutral position, we're going to slide one leg along the mat. Now, if you know my classes, you know what you're going to do with this one. Okay, I'm not going to tell you. And then we're going to come in. So you're going to slide the other leg and then bring it in. So keep the foot on the floor and work on the alignment of the pelvis. So when you take that leg back, your pelvis is going to stay completely neutral, completely neutral. So it's like you can balance a tray of, let's think what you would actually like after Christmas. Probably not anything alcoholic. Okay, so let's go a cup of coffee since it's 9 in the morning. Yeah, so just sliding out and in, keeping the pelvis nice and neutral. And then we're going to see if we can slide out and lift the leg without changing the position of the pelvis. So you're going to need to engage through your abdominal muscles as we support that leg lift and make sure that the back doesn't arch and sink into it. So try again on the other side. So slide the leg, exhale, lift. Make sure you're really engaged through the core. And we're going to have a go at adding on from that. So we come out, lift, and just try and lift the hand. See what happens when you lift the hand. If it feels okay, you're going to go into that long reach. And from there, just layer it up. If it doesn't feel quite right or you get any pain in your back, we're not going to do that long reach. But if you are doing so this is called full Superman. If you are doing that movement, you're going to think about really pulling your tummy up, making sure your pelvis stays as neutral as you can. Right, stick with that. Or what I'm going to do is take one arm, one leg away, so you can just have the leg if you want to. We're going to keep the leg up in front of us. So you're going to bend the back knee. Yeah, so look in if you're not sure. Bend the back knee, flex the foot, and we're going to kick that heel up to the ceiling 8 times. Yeah, so have the hand down. If the knee needs to be down, you just need to do a small lift, that's fine. But flex the heel and push the heel towards your bottom. Okay, keep your pelvis as neutral as you can. Make sure that the foot is coming up to the ceiling rather than out to the side. So there's a couple that are going off to the side. Yeah, so keep your pelvis neutral. It'll only go behind you over to the side if your pelvis isn't neutral. So you're going to feel this into the back of your hamstring. Your tummy's going to be working hard. Yeah, we're going to hold that leg out now, long. So touch the toe on the floor if you need to. Put the opposite hand down. You're going to flex the foot. Keep the toe hovering. Bend the knee up to your bottom and straighten it. Okay, so bend and straighten. Now, all the time, we're looking for the pelvis to be really, really aligned. I know it's quite tough on the wrists, so give yourself a breather with the wrists if you need to. Yeah, and taking that leg back and in. Now, make sure we haven't started to lose that form and sag through the back. Okay, and rest. We're going to come off the wrists and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now, you should feel this into the back of your leg. You should feel it a little bit in a good way in your low back, okay, because you're having to stabilize. But I really need you to feel it across between your belly button and your pubic bone. You're pulling everything up and in to keep your pelvis nice and stable. Your shoulders might feel it a bit too, but that's all good. Right, same thing, other side. So sliding the leg, lifting the leg, taking the other hand out if that feels like it's for you. It might not be. Bending the knee. We've got 8 pulses with that leg up to the ceiling. Keep everything really square. You're going to breathe out as you pulse and you're keeping the foot flexed, keeping the heel into the bottom. Remember, if you take that opposite arm out and you start to lose that form, then we're going to need to put the arm down. So from there, you've probably got another 1. Yeah, take the leg back, tap the floor, then bend in. So tap and bend. Now you're going to exhale as you bend the heel into the bottom. And reach and bend. Anyone with really bendy elbows, okay, try and make sure that you're not hyperextending your elbows. Yeah, and then when you're done, you're going to go to those wrist circles. Excellent. Right, lying over onto our side now. So Regulars, you're going to be up on your elbow and you're going to be doing open knee. So this one, okay, or you're going to follow what I'm doing. So we haven't got blocks or anything like that. For the majority of you, I wouldn't think you've got anything. So we're just going to use our arm, either tucking like this. My elbow's going to be behind me. Or I'm going to have my arms straight. I'm setting my hips up so they're stacked on top of each other, and I'm setting my shoulders up so they're stacked on top of each other. My heels are going to be behind me, and I'm going to take my hand onto my top hip. So this will go for everyone, even if you're in open leg oyster. Now we're going to pull the knee up to the ceiling, and we're going to push the heels together. So push the heels in together. That's it. Now, at no time are my heels going to come apart. I'm going to exhale as I open the knee, and I'm not rolling backwards. Just a little refresher, if you're doing the open leg one, you're going to be here. Okay? So make sure you're not collapsing into this shoulder.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
Because there was a little bit left under there. Just keep your head. No, that's it. So you're kind of like a clamshell.
Avril, just whiz your sound off for me, please, pop it. Okay, so you should feel this into the side of your glute, yeah, in here. So these are the stabilizers that we use to support our pelvis. Now we're going to stay up this time. We're keeping the knee exactly where it is, still in space, as we straighten the lower part of the leg. I'm running out of room, so I'm just going to shuffle forwards. Okay, so my knee is up. I'm pushing my heels together, so I'm feeling that sensation in between my inner thighs as I push my heels together. I'm going to try and keep that sensation on. My knee's going to stay completely still as I stretch through the low part of my leg. Then I'm going to bring my heels in and make sure they're squeezing together again. Okay, so it's open, close. Now the leg is turned out all the time. I'm going to try and make sure that I don't start to drop through that knee and do this. Yeah, so I'm open, my hips are aligned, just the lower part of the leg, as though you're trying to flick something off your toe. So it's you know, that type of movement. You're going to feel it into the side of your glute, and it's going to be a little bit stronger this time because we're holding that isometric hold. Last one. Okay, take the leg long now. Yeah, so the leg's nice and long, and we're using that bottom knee to stabilize us. So everyone's going to do this one. Yeah, and we're going to do tiny circles with the leg. And those circles come from the hip, not from the ankles. Okay, not from the knee, like waving around. It's going to come from the hip. So I'm keeping everything as still as I can on the mat, and I'm just using that ball and socket of the hip. Yeah, just where it's coming from. We're going to go 5 one way, 5 the other way. Keep the circles nice and small, and make sure the big muscle of your bottom is working. So we don't want to see these circles in front of you because you're just going to be using your quad. You need to feel it in your glutes. Yeah, so it's going to feel in the top here and also in the back of the bottom. Yeah, so the big fleshy bit of your bum. So give yourself a little bit of a pat round. We're going to do those on the other side. Unfortunately, there's always 2 sides, so we do have to repeat. Right, okay, so into that closed leg oyster for my new people who have joined today, and my regulars are going to be up on the elbow, open leg oyster. So heels are going to be together, and as I exhale, I'm going to squeeze my heels in together and open the knee and come down. That's it, squeeze in and open the knee. Now, what you're trying to avoid here is any movement through the pelvis. We're trying not to roll backwards onto the fleshy bit of our bottom, because otherwise you're just going to start to work our thighs, and for most people our thighs are more overactive than they should be because of lazy glutes. It's a really common thing. Yeah. So either our hamstrings or so the backs of our thighs or the front of our thighs tend to compensate for our glutes not working. and our core not working, and that's why we get so many back problems. Right, so open, think about that sensation of squeezing the heels in together, and then flick that foot up and forwards, come down, yeah, and then again. So you've got 8 of these. We only ever work to like 8 reps in Pilates, apart from a couple of times we do 100. We won't talk about that today. Let's not scare you off. Okay, but it's quick, it's quick. Okay, so really work on that turnout through the hip so you feel it into the top of the hip. That's it, and keep trying to imagine that you're squeezing those inner thighs together. That's it. Yeah, so try not to let that knee roll forward, so the knee shouldn't be facing forwards, it should be facing up, sort of up to the corner of the room. That's it. Then we've got that straight leg. Now the knee is facing forwards or slightly turned up. I know I've got a couple of ballet people in here, so your turnout's going to be amazing. Yeah. But just try, if my 2 ballet people, if you are turning out, try not to turn out too much. Okay, so yours is going to be a mid-range turn. Yeah, so 5 circles forwards, 5 circles back. Remember that your leg isn't going to start creeping forwards. It's going to stay in line. So we've got 5 and 5. Excellent. Then give yourself a pat round. And then we'll be taking ourselves onto our back. You're going to have your feet so they are flat on the floor. Now, can we just look at that position that we did when we were into standing right at the very beginning, where we were rocking the weight forwards and backwards on our heels and onto the balls of the foot. And what we were doing was trying to establish where the weight needs to sit. So the weight needs to sit evenly from the heel and the ball of the foot. That's what we're looking to, distribute our weight. So it's exactly the same when we're laying down. Yeah. So we're not going to put all the weight into our toes and scrunch up our toes onto the mat. And you're also not going to put all the weight into your heels. And we want that pelvic clock again, where we tip forwards and tip backwards. And we're going to find that neutral position. So we won't go over that too much today, but just make sure that you're thinking about what we did when we're standing up. Yeah. Now we're going to lift our hips up to the ceiling. So you're going to inhale to prepare. Exhale, lift your hips up to the ceiling. You're just going to hold that position a minute. So can you put your hands on top of your rib cage and try and pull them in? So what I mean is your rib cage isn't going to start to flare up. Yeah, so your hands are going to go onto your ribs and you're just going to gently sort of ease them down towards the mat. Now you're going to keep your rib cage there. My other hand's going to come round to the low part of my back. I'm really squeezing my bottom here. And then I'm going to just sort of push my hips. I say push, ease my hips up to the ceiling while I keep my rib cage in. Now that's the position that we're looking for. So we're going to keep our hands where they are. And then as we inhale, we're going to tap our pelvis down onto the mat. As we exhale, we're going to push up. Now you're going to squeeze your bottom together as you lift. And you're going to breathe out, making sure that that rib cage doesn't start to flare up. So keep the hands where they are and just look at that setup position. So exhale as we lift. We're doing 4 of these, so that's 3. Yeah. And we've got 1 more after this. So exhale. Coming up. I just lost you, Louise, but you've come back in again. Okay. We're going to take the weight onto one leg now. So my other leg's going to be into a tabletop position. If you're used to coming, you're going to take your hands over your head and you're going to float them. If you're not, you're going to keep your hands exactly where they are, or even onto your hips to feel if you're stable or not. I'm going to just float my arms up so you can see what I'm doing. My leg is into a tabletop. But this time, I'm going to work on that alignment. I'm going to lift up with a single leg. Any discomfort, you're going to go back to a double leg. So you're going to do 4 like this. So inhale as you come down, exhale, same leg, same leg, same leg. If it's too much for you with hands overhead, you're going to have your hands on your hips. Now, what we're working here is we're working through the lower part of the back in a good way again, and we're isolating on the glutes. So we've done quite a lot of glutes today, but that's just sort of how it goes. Yeah. So all the time we're working on that breath, really engaging through our core with every single one. Yeah. So just 4 of these on each side. Otherwise, that means you're going to be doing 12 of the double leg. So same thing, other side. So keeping those hips nice and even. And now you're used to it. You can think about the sensation of pulling the heel into your bottom. That's it. So really pull in and engaging through the back of the hamstring. Remember, we're not flaring up through the chest. So that's been our setup all along. Keeping those hips nice and even. So just 4. You're lucky we haven't got 8 on each side today. And then we're coming down. We're going to let the feet come together and the knees come apart. And I'm going to support my head with my hands. Now, we're just going to chill out here for a second while I talk. Now, if you're into this position that's causing you really loads of discomfort through your groin area, then you're going to try and just take the feet a little bit further away from you. If it's causing you to arch your back and push your ribs up to the ceiling, you're going to play with the position of your feet until you can keep your rib cage down. Now, my elbows are just sort of splayed out to the side, and I've supported my head with my interlinked fingers behind my skull. Now, see if you can imagine that we are lengthening right from our tailbone up to the crown of our head. So we're creating space in our spine. Yeah, so we're all about lengthening the limbs and really creating that good ballet posture, to be quite honest. Right, now elbows are going to be where I can see them now, so I'm just going to hover them a couple of inches off the mat. And yours might be there anyway if you're tight through your chest. Without pulling onto your head, my head's going to just cradle into my cupped fingers. I'm going to exhale and think about just lifting my shoulders off to the mat. So I'm not trying to focus on curling into a C shape and looking towards my belly button. Trying to just think about a string onto my sternum that's going to lift my chest. Yeah, now as you lift your chest, try and push your hips into the mat and feel like your hip bones are drawing together. So actually the only thing that lifts really is your shoulders. Yeah, and the head's just cradled into the hands. Now where I want you to feel this is between your hips and between your belly button and your pubic bone. So you're going to breathe out. Start to think about drawing up through the pelvic floor. So that sensation of sort of stopping yourself from passing wind, okay, or having a wee. It's sort of generally the same for men and women. Obviously we are built slightly differently, just a weeny bit. Yeah, a weeny bit. Sorry. Okay. And then we're going to come up and hold that one up at the top. Yeah, so the head is just cradling. And I'm going to look down towards my tummy, and I'm going to make sure that I have no doming through my abdominals. Yeah, so I'm going to try and pull my rib cage into the mat, and then I'm going to come back down. So the next 8 that we do, we are going to be curling up and looking down to our pubic bone. And we're going to skim our eye gaze across our belly and make sure that we're not seeing any visible rises there. Yeah, so exhale, look up, pull the tummy down to the mat. Now, the next 6, so you've probably done 2 by now, you're going to push the heels in together. So exhale, pelvic floor, push the heels in together, but try not to activate the glutes too much. But feel a sensation of the inner thighs starting to fire up. Now that should add a sort of bit of a different level there. Now you're aiming also to not tuck your pelvis and lift your pelvis up. These should feel a little bit of a challenge. So I think you've probably got about another 3. So exhale, look down your body, make it nice and slow. So Pilates is all about working to the speed of the breath. So we build that time under tension by doing minimal repetitions. So we only work to 8. Yeah. And you want to make those 8 repetitions build strength, not size, and really make sure that the breath is working properly. So last one. Then slowly bring those knees up to center and just hug your knees into your chest. Have a little rock from side to side there and just massage out through the low part of the back. Now, at no time should that have given you any back discomfort. Oh, I've got the sun beaming in on my face. That's quite a delight this morning. Now, bring those feet down to the back, and hands are going to be down by your side. Now, for my regulars, you're going to go into your 100. Okay, so and I'm going to cue my new people through the technique, and we're probably going to do about 40 repetitions. So while I'm talking, you're going to start your 100. Right, so we're going to remember what we did when we curled up a moment ago, but our legs are in a different position now. I'm going to hover my whole arms off the mat. So my arms are hovering, yeah, as though I've got something underneath my palms and underneath my triceps. Now I'm going to exhale as I curl up. I'm going to lift my head and shoulders up, and I'm going to look down towards my knees. Yeah. Then I'm going to come back down. So that's our upper body setup. Our lower body setup, we're going to take one knee up to a knee fold position. Yeah. So where my knee is over my hip, my shins parallel. Okay. And then I'm going to curl up again. So this is your setup, sort of number 2. And then just try the same thing with the other leg. And you're going to stick with that, or you're going to go to double legs. And then you're going to start to move your hands up and down, right from your shoulders, as you stay looking through the gap to your knees. Any neck pain, you take the head and shoulders down. We keep our shins parallel to the ceiling. We keep our core pulled in. And we breathe, remembering that you can do alternatives. So the pumps are quite quick. We're looking for a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more set. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And bring your knees into your chest. So you know I said we only do 8 reps. That's our 100. We do 2 exercises like that, the 100, and we usually do the flutter kicks to 100. But apart from that, we stick to like 8 repetitions. Now we're going to roll over onto our front. If at any time you're not sure what I'm saying to you, I'm going to explain this, but if you don't understand the cues, please try not to crane your neck to look up and actually sit up and watch me. Yep. So you're going to lay onto your front, and we're all going to take the hands, so one palm on the other palm, and let your forehead onto the hands, and just nestle your hips into the mat. So you should feel like you can really just, I know some people sleep on their front, and so you're going to just sort of feel like everything's released down to the mat. Then from there, see if you can visualize that you have a drawing pin into your belly button. So you're going to pull your belly button away from the mat. Yeah, and you're going to try and hold that position so that we can support our low back and make sure we don't load up our lumbar spine. So that engagement is just there all the time, about sort of 30–50%. And then see if we can Lengthen our right leg. So without the hip lifting, we're going to try and exhale, lengthen the right leg as though someone's pulling on it. Yeah? And you're going to keep that core connected like I just explained, and inhale to place it down. This time we work on the left, so you'll inhale to prepare, exhale, lift that leg. So this is quite isolated. I'm trying to imagine that my legs are like steel rods, okay, as I lift. So I'm not bending through the knee. You might get a lift, you might not. But don't worry if you don't actually lift the leg, yeah? So if you feel like we're just going to keep swapping sides, if you feel like it's too much for you to actually lift, then just feel the sensation as though someone's pulling onto the leg, yeah? So it's always going to be an exhale. Now, if that feels okay, and you're quite stable, you're not rocking from side to side, we're going to take our arms over our head. My thumbs are going to be up, and my palms are facing each other. And I'm just going to let my sort of nose get out of the way, which is quite difficult. But I'm going to let my forehead come down onto the mat. Now, my right hand and my left leg is going to lift now. On a breath out, inhale to place it down, exhale. Exactly like we did when we were into those Supermans, but this time we're into a prone position. Yeah? Now it's important that we don't let the legs start to come out to the side. So you're really focusing on the back here, so your upper body, it's really good for posture, working on that posterior chain. But remember that you're pulling your belly up to the ceiling and you're trying to push your hip down. So we're always working on that opposite side. Only add the arms in if it feels okay. One more each side, and then you're going to take yourself back to a rest position. If you're not sure what that is, look. Otherwise, you're going to roll onto your back and bring your knees into your chest. So if this position doesn't work for your knees, then we just want to take our spine into that canter stretch. Creep those fingers further forwards, and if you're over onto your back, yeah, just hug those knees in nice and tight and have a little rock from side to side. Now, sometimes when you start Pilates, it can take between sort of 6 and 10 sessions to actually get things to work. So if you feel like you're not doing very much, you might notice it tomorrow or the next day, but it can take a little while for you to understand how to isolate different muscles and how to keep the correct form. And when you keep the correct form, the smallest movements really do have a good effect. Right, so we're going to lay onto our front again. All my regulars should be able to, even though we're doing quite fundamental stuff today, you should all be able to feel like you're still working really, really hard. Yeah, it's not about how hard we actually make the exercises, it's about how we function with our bodies. Okay, so laying onto our front again. This time we're going to replicate what we did, and we're going to lay down onto our front with our knees wide. So my knees are wide. Now, if you find this position too difficult to come into, yeah, if your hips are too tight, just bring them closer together. But if you're able to, you're going to take your knees mat width apart. Unlucky for me because I've got an extra wide mat. And I'm going to push my hips into the floor, and I'm going to engage through my core exactly like I did before and bring my feet up. So I'm going to Charlie Chaplin my feet now. So my heels are together and my heels are also over my knees. Yeah, so my shins are vertical up to the ceiling. Then my feet are turned out, and as I exhale, I'm going to push my heels together, push my hips into the mat and squeeze. Maybe, just maybe, I can lift my knees off the mat and then come down. Now, if you can lift your knees off the mat, it will be quite a small movement. Yeah, it doesn't It doesn't have a big movement, big range of movement, this exercise, but push your heels in together, flex your feet, exhale, and make sure that you're working with your breath on an out breath as you try and lift. Now keep those heels over your bottom. That's it. Try not to use that upper body. So a couple of you are recruiting your upper bodies there. So your upper body should be doing absolutely zero with this one. That's it. So see if you can keep your chest down. Try not to let your elbows lift. Breath out, engage your core and push your heels in together. If you're struggling to get your heels together, you're really going to work on that. You might need to change your knee position. Yeah. Now imagine that you are squeezing a £50 note between your bum cheeks with this one. Okay. And it takes time to be able to isolate the areas that I'm telling you to isolate. Do one more and then you're going to find that rest position, or you're going to come up to a 4-point kneeling position. So if you're happy to come to a 4-point kneeling position again, we're going to cat-cow the spine. If you just want to hold that rest position, you're going to be here like this. And then you might want to join us in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to pull my shoulders away from my ears and just let my belly sag down towards the floor. And that's quite a technical term, sag. Yeah, but just try and sort of let everything release and stretch your tummy muscles. And then as you take a breath out, see if you can tuck your tailbone first. So you're going to breathe out, tuck your tailbone, keep tucking your tailbone, and then try and ripple that tuck all the way up to your upper body and let your head hang there. Then this time, rather than just letting the belly sag down, we're going to control it. So as you inhale, you're going to start to tuck your tailbone up to the ceiling. So we're going to try and ripple through the spine that way, just bringing in a little bit of spinal mobility in there. Now keep your head looking forwards, not up. And again, exhale, tuck the pelvis first. Really think about using the pelvic floor to get that tuck. And it's super, super controlled as we get a lovely, lovely stretch through the back. And then again, leading with the tailbone as you inhale. And up and forward. So super slow, super controlled. Just make sure your head stays tucked. Okay, so you're not going to flip top your neck when you come up. And exhale. Now start to focus whether you're pushing your shoulder blades apart really heavily or you are really working from the lumbar spine, so the low part of the spine. You're tucking your pelvis when you come into that cat position. So think of a Halloween angry cat, and that's what we want to take our spine like, that beautiful, beautiful C shape. So try and do one more each side, and then we'll come into some stretches. Fab job. And it's amazing that you know, a couple of people that I haven't seen for a long time, you come back into it and you just absolutely remember your form. It never goes once you've learnt it, and it's just like riding a bike. It really is. Yeah, everything might feel a bit stiff and a bit different, but once you've learned how to control your limbs, it does really help. Oh, I love a bit of doggy fun in there. Someone's doggy's just jumped in. Okay, right, so let's do some stretches. So we're going to lay onto our back. And if you're not sure, obviously you're going to look. I'm going to take my, it doesn't matter which leg, so my ankle is going to come up onto my opposite knee. So one foot is flat on the floor, the other leg's going to come up. Now if you can't reach, then you're just going to put the put it where you can get it. So it might be on the top of the knee. But if you can pull it in a bit deeper, you're going to pull it in a bit deeper, flex the foot. And this might be enough for you, just pushing the knee out to the side. Otherwise, we're going to reach through the gap. So my hand comes through the middle and it holds onto the supporting leg. Yeah. So it's not the leg that's turned out. So it's not the knee that's turned out to the side. It's the other leg I'm going to hold. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, good. And just try and push the knee out to the side using your muscles and feel a stretch into the side of the hip. For some of you who are more bendy, you might be able to hold on to the shin. Yeah, but don't even attempt that if it's not going to feel easy. So we hold this stretch for a fair while just because we do a fair bit of glute stuff. And nice and slowly, we're going to swap to the other side. Chances are you've done your favourite side first, so the other side might feel quite stiff. That's it, just try and make sure the foot is flexed, so you're not sort of rounding in through the ankle. Good job. Okay, go back to the first leg, hold on to the back of the thigh this time. So you're going to reach around onto the back of the thigh, interlink your fingers, and just have a go at straightening the leg up to the ceiling and pushing your heel up, pushing into the back of the knee crease and pulling the toes towards the nose. Yeah, so you're just stretching out through the back of that leg. You might be able to stretch the other leg on the mat. It does depend how flexible you are, but don't lose the stretch into the hamstring of the leg that you've got hold of. You might even feel this into your calf. So pushing that leg up, toes towards your nose, make sure you're not shaking. And then we're going to circle the ankle. So concentrate on when you circle the ankle, pulling the toes towards the nose every time. And see if you can embrace those clicks, because we're all going to get them. And then make sure you go both ways, but keep that hamstring stretch on. Now, holding on to that leg, but you're going to bend the knee now and bring the knee tight into the chest. So if your other leg isn't straight, just have a go at straightening that leg along the mat. The knee might be bent and that's fine. Either hold on to the back of the shin, back of the thigh, or you're going to reach around and cup onto the shin and pull that knee nice and tight into your chest. Now you might feel a stretch here. Some people just don't feel anything with this one. I'm hoping that you can feel a little bit around your groin, sort of down the back of that leg and around. Yeah, you might feel it into your hip a tiny bit, and you're likely to feel it into your hamstring a tiny bit and maybe your glute. So just, it's a bit of an odd one, this one. But just see where you will get some benefit from it. You might even feel it into the other leg at the top of the hip, you know, a little bit into the hip flexor if you're tight, or the quad. Keep hold of that leg, but pull the leg across to the opposite shoulder now. Yeah, so the hips, you're going to take one hand out to the side to stabilize you. You're actually going to lift the hip. Okay, so you're going to roll over onto the fleshy bit of one bum cheek and just keep that knee pulling up to the opposite shoulder. Instead of pulling it across, think about across and up. So it is coming. So for example, I've got hold of my right knee and I'm pulling it up to my left shoulder. And you're going to feel that into the side of the hip. You might get a little bit in the low back. And nice and slowly come up. And we're going to repeat those ones on the other side. So start with that foot bent. Bring the leg in. Okay, hold on to the back of the thigh. Flex the foot, so you're going to pull your toes towards your nose, push into the back of the knee crease, and then slide the foot away on the mat, the other leg, if that's doable for you, but don't worry if it's not. And remembering we're not about shaking. Well, I can tell the ballet dancers in the room. Just gonna like trim my toenails with my teeth. Okay, and then start to circle the ankle. Make sure that you keep the hamstring stretch on, and you're going to feel this sort of down the sides of your shins into the calves a little bit. Excellent. Then bending that knee, pulling it tight into the chest, adjusting the other leg if you need to. And if you're able to, you're going to hold on to the shin. So pulling that knee nice and tight to the chest. Now, if your other leg is bent, see where you can shuffle that heel to, and see if you can sort of try and relax through the front of the hip. So if your other leg is bent, you're likely to feel a stretch through the top of the hip, yeah, of your straight leg, not the leg you're holding on to. And then bringing that knee over to the opposite shoulder, yeah. So taking the other hand out to the side, taking it across. And remember that we're pulling, just teasing that knee over and across. So it's sort of trying to meet the opposite shoulder, as though you're, trying to squeeze out your middle. And then slowly roll back to the center. Bring your knees into your chest. Hug them in nice and tight. You might want to bring your nose to your knees, as long as that doesn't give you any neck discomfort. Have a few circles round through your low back. Make sure you go both directions. Head down if you need to. And then if your head is up, bring your head and shoulders down. Take your hands onto your knees now and open your knees. Okay, so the really unglamorous position. And then we're going to bring the knees together and take them out. So I want you to circle. So each knee is going to be going the opposite way, so away from each other and in together. So you're basically opening and closing your legs, trying to make those circles as big as you can, just bringing some mobility into your hips. Now, hopefully you don't have any clicking here. Make sure you go both ways. You might have you can sometimes get a thing called snapping hip, where the ligament snaps across the hip bone. So you might feel a bit of a clunk, as long as it's not painful. So about 4 or 5 in each direction. And then we'll make our way around to a seated position, and you're going to push your weight up to seated. Find any position that's comfortable for you, and you're just going to bring one arm across the body, and make sure you're not pulling onto that elbow and pulling the shoulder away from the ear. That's it. So you just feel a stretch through the upper part of your back. If you feel discomfort sitting like this, just stand up. Yeah, it's too, and if sitting on the floor doesn't work for you. And swap sides. Now, usually at the end of my classes, I would do like a 5-minute relaxation, but we're not going to do that today because I've talked way too much. And also, it can feel a bit daunting the first time you do a Zoom class. I don't want to scare you all off. And then the elbow is going to come pointing up to the ceiling. And you're just going to tease that arm across, reaching up with the elbow. If you can't reach, you're going to just push backwards. Just sort of opening up through the front of the chest, but you're going to feel this into your tricep. So into the back of your arm there. Good stuff. Change sides. Remembering that if sitting on the floor just doesn't work for you. Now, if you find that you have a really big range of movement, it can mean that you have hypermobility, and you should be never ever thinking about stretching anywhere beyond like a 5. And for everyone else, it's about a 6 to an 8. So never pain. Yeah. One last one. We're going to take our fingers behind our back, push down, and you're going to push your chest forwards. So I'm bringing my hands behind me, pushing my chest forwards, and just looking up. So I hope you had a nice Christmas. I have had a few jokes about Happy New Year already. So hopefully it's not going to be Happy New Year today at 4:30 when we get the news. So just reach up and come over, but I think we're all going to be in this situation again for a little while, unfortunately. So let's just make the most of it. That's what I say, and keep moving. So reach, just stretch up, open through the side body. It's been absolutely lovely to see so many of you this morning. Okay, and interlink the fingers and stretch and look through to your pubic bone, round through your back and open through your upper back. And release the hands and give yourself a little clap. Well done, you did amazing. So I think we still have everyone we started with, which is always a bonus. So you can wish your sound off, or you can just disappear. Entirely up to you.
Thanks,
but thank you very much. Lovely to see you, Yvonne. Lovely to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next week.